Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Hello and good afternoon. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Really excited to have some amazing guests in studio today. Personal friend of mine, also hosts a radio show over at HNZ, the Real Estate Quarterback Show. Good afternoon, Brandon Rhymes.
Thanks for having me in, Katrina. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. You know, we have such a great synergy, myself, you, Jamie, and a lot of us through the Real Estate Radio Network. And it's interesting the friendships that you'll develop over time being in a network like that.
Sure, yeah. You never know where life's going to take you. And one day we're selling real estate in Tampa. The next day we're out in San Diego, California, at broadcast school and meeting a lot of cool people across the nation. So
it's such a cool concept. I love it. Thanks anyway for coming. I really appreciate you being my guest today.
Absolutely.
We got some cool things coming up he's going to share with you. We're going to talk a little bit about the flood reform. I know everybody wants to know about that hot topic in the news. And we also have special guest, also show partner for Brandon, Mark Sherwin. He's the founder of Sage Capital Advisors. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little about a few things. First of all, if you're catching us here for the first time, because we're on a new network as of last Saturday, the mission of our show here at Tampa Home Talk is to help our clients, new ones, existing clients, really just maintain, obtain, or rebuild good credit, live within their means, and build wealth. And my team and I are extremely passionate about it. It's really our lifelong goal just to make sure that we set our home buyers and our sellers up for success. It's really important to me, and it's really important to the people on my team. And I have some great listings I'm going to share with you here shortly as well. But let's go ahead and jump into the flood stuff, Brandon, because I know you're pretty up to speed on that. And that's a crazy revolving door. I mean, you probably were up all wee hours reading on that. So
sure, yeah, it's affecting a lot of people in Tampa Bay and South Florida. And it's kind of the thing that happened. We had Katrina go on. Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, thank God, because now everybody can spell my name, right?
Yeah, right. And then we had Superstorm Sandy, which they depleted the reserves of the flood bill or the flood firm.
Right. One interesting part, and this, they were talking about the flood subsidized, and we're subsidized by the government for flood premiums forever and all this. But the one part that I don't like is we're actually part of the subsidization group for the Mississippi River as well.
Sure.
And for me, that part I don't think seems very fair, even though we're on a peninsula. Anywho.
Yeah, and I had a meeting over at Pinellas Realtor Organization, and speaking with David Bennett. He's the president and CEO of there, and he was talking about how the effects of Superstorm Sandy, each homeowner that was affected got $97,000 check, and it was a lot of people that got affected. So that was a superstorm, drained the fund. But so here's the latest: is the U.S. House of Representatives passed this H.R. 3370 Homeowner Flood Insurance Affordability Act. The bill is expected to go straight to the Senate versus going to a conference with flood bill the U.S. Senate passed previously. So the main highlight points is that the bill permanently repeals Section 207 of the Bigger Waters Act.
Now, let's slow down a little bit and just explain that in case someone has not heard that before.
Yep.
The Bigger Waters Act was the whole flood reform thing where they came in and said, the government's no longer going to subsidize your flood premiums because they're actually lower than they should be.
Yeah.
And essentially, they're trying to hike everyone's flood insurance rates, either over the long term, or if you're selling your home and you have a new buyer that's actually purchasing a home, they will immediately see the impacts of that.
And that was the big problem, is that it slowed down a lot of transactions for a lot of realtors, a lot of mortgage companies, title companies, and so essentially they were trying to make those changes. Now this bill is going to overturn that, and a lot of people are going to get refunds.
Now, is it completely overturning it, or is it just modifying it? Do you know?
Well, what it's saying that the post-firm properties that were built to code at the time of construction will have protection from rate spikes due to new mapping. So, for example, if you build a +2 base flood elevation, you stay at +2 regardless of new maps. Also, importantly, the grandfathering stays at the property, not the policy.
That's great. Because I know, well, personally, I can speak from experience on this. This was the craziest example that we've had, so I just have to share it. I was explaining to Brandon before the show started that most of our business is referred. We do the radio show to really help our current clients and our past clients live within the mission. But we had a client that was buying a second home, actually, from the Milwaukee area, where it's cold, way up there. And they were getting their new flood quotes. And one of the flood quotes that we got back came at $32,000 a year. It was more than the mortgage payment.
Wow.
So, of course, if you're trying to qualify, you're out. You know what I mean? So they were able to strip that policy down to bare bones. And basically, I think they ended up writing about $8,000 or $9,000.
Wow.
So they're supposed to refund some of that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what we're hearing, and this still has to pass through the Senate, but they're expecting it to go. We're talking about the strong lobby that the realtor organization has.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, we pay a lot of money as realtors,
sure,
to keep that strong, and we do it not only for our own livelihood but we actually believe in home ownership and what it stands for.
Protecting consumers.
Exactly.
Ultimately, we're protecting consumers and our livelihoods as well, but it all goes hand in hand in many cases.
I mean, if you look at home ownership here, I mean, I know a lot of people complain about mortgage insurance and stuff, but essentially, it's really a blessing because in other countries, like France and different places in Europe, they can't purchase until they have 20% or more.
Sure.
And a lot of those homes get willed, or they buy old farmhouses and they restore them. It's very expensive to purchase in other countries.
Another facet too to talk about is that they don't have multiple listing services in many places, meaning where when we take a property, we take the pictures, we have the application, we upload it into a central database. They don't have that type of a system. So a lot of times in Great Britain, for example, it's people are scared to market their properties because it's been in their generation for many, many years. So they kind of want an inside sale. So you might not even know a property's for sale. So there's a lot of reasons to contribute to your realtor organizations and pay attention to those things.
Do you have any closing thoughts on that, or we're going to take a break here in just a minute. You have any thoughts on that?
I agree on everything that's been said so far.
I know you do, the financial side, so you're like, whoa, what are you talking about? So you're listening to Tampa Home Talk here on WTAN. We have Brandon Rhymes in studio with us today. Real Estate Quarterback Show, 1250. You can catch him at 2 o'clock, usually, over there at H&Z, and also on your website, which we'll post on our page, tampahometalk.com, because I don't know off the top of my head. And also Mark Sherwin, founder of Sage Capital Advisors. I know he's going to have some great tips for people that want to build wealth towards the latter part of the show. So hang in there and we'll give you some more information. If you have questions for us today, for myself or any of my guests in studio, please call us. Our call-in line here at the studio, 727-441-3000. Again, you can reach us in studio, 727-441-3000. And we're going to take a real quick break. We'll be back. Some of them just hit the market, so they're real good finds. Some of them may not have already syndicated to some of those sites that you were talking about that get fed across the web. And I know Brandon has some properties and some upcoming exciting stuff he wants to share too. So we'll be back in just a minute. Good afternoon and welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell with Charles Ruttenberg Realty. In studio today, we have Brandon Rhymes, the Real Estate Quarterback Show. You can find him usually on 1250 at 2 o'clock following Cigar Dave. Is that correct?
That's right.
And we also have Mark Sherwin with Sage Capital Advisors going to go over some great little tips to build wealth as we move forward into another segment. So stick around. You won't want to miss it. If you miss any part of today's show, you can catch it on our website at tampahometalk.com. And you can also catch up to us on our social feeds, Facebook and Twitter at Tampa Home Talk. So let's carry on where we left out. You have some more points there on the flood reform, because that's most people aren't thinking about it, but if you live in a flood zone or you're trying to sell a house in a flood zone or you want to buy in a flood zone, it's a big deal right now.
Big deal, real big deal. And it hurt the economy. It slowed down a lot of home purchases. I was interviewed by the Tribune some months back, and they were just trying to get a handle on exactly what's happening, because that's the reason why we've set up our shows, is there's so much misinformation floating around out there, and we put our shows in place to help our local Tampa Bay market discern that.
Yeah, because if you look at the media, they're going to have you believing that no one's selling and everybody's in a flood zone because we live on a peninsula, which is really just not the case.
Yeah, and they're normally 2 or 3 weeks behind on a good day. So, but yeah, the flood update goes, something like this. The bill permanently repeals Section 207, meaning the grandfathering is reinstated. Okay, the next bullet point is caps annual rate increases at 15%.
Do they have a target date when they're trying to retroact that? Do you know? Did they mention it in anything that you saw? It's probably still in the air, right, until it gets passed?
Yeah, it's got to pass the Senate still, but they're very... They're optimistic that it's going to go through.
NAR has a big push behind that. So you really thank your local realtor. If you know a realtor, if you don't, you can call us. But if you know someone, trust me, and the dues that they've paid, it's really helped push a lot of this through.
Yeah, absolutely. So the annual caps are going to be increases are going to be at 15%. So that's going to help. It's going to prevent FEMA from raising the premiums within a single property class beyond 15% average per year. And so it goes into more detail there. It's going to refund policyholders who purchase pre-firm homes after BW12 and permanently remove the sales trigger. This bill removes the policy sales trigger, which allows purchaser to take advantage of a phase-in.
What does that mean? Do you know?
Yeah, whenever you have a sales trigger, basically what it would say is that they're going to permanently remove that sales trigger. So the policy sales trigger, which allows purchasers to take advantage of the phase-in. So if you purchase a property, you're no longer going to have these major increases with flood insurance. You're going to be capped at a 15%. So it's pretty fair.
Perfect.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of people were trying to see, like when this first passed. People were trying to transfer their flood policies. They were trying to see if they could, have the new buyer kind of assume the existing policy because to write a new policy was so expensive.
Right.
What kind of things did your office see? Because I know in Tampa, not all of it's in a flood zone. There's different pockets. Depends on your base flood elevation. But what kind of stuff? What kind of crazy premiums do you see? Anything nuts? But like $32,000.
Yeah, right. I did read that in the Business Journal as well, and we had a couple cases, but weren't that extreme. But yeah, calling on particular homeowners who may have expired off the MLS, I've spoke to a few of those people, and they said, "Listen, we're just taking it off the market. We're not even going to try to sell it until this gets normalized again."
It's hard. You can't compete with that as a seller. I mean, I can't even imagine trying to sell my home.
Yeah,
in the middle of that BW12 mess.
You're basically trapped in your home.
So it gives a whole new meaning to the term underwater, right?
Yeah, right.
It's a different scenario now.
Absolutely.
So is there any other bullet points on that bill?
Yeah, two more. It says it allows for annual surcharges, so $25 for primary residence and $250 for second homes and businesses until the subsidized policies reach full risk rates. So that's very minuscule. And then you've got funds the affordability study.
I'm curious on that last point. Mm-hmm. Repeat that again. Is it talking about the subsidized rates? Because some of those are saying are pretty hefty, like what the normal rate should be.
This is an effort to rebuild the fund. So what it's saying is that $25 annually per primary residence, $250 for a second home and businesses until subsidized policies reach full risk rates. All revenues from these assessments would be placed in the NFIP Reserve Fund, which is established to ensure funds are available and for meeting the exceeded future.
And NFIP is National Flood Insurance Program.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And there's two more bullets. It's funds the affordability study, which that's great. We want them studying, finding out what the chances are of a flood, and then includes the flood improvement threshold. So substantial improvements, the threshold, renovations, remodeling, historic, 50% of a structure's fair market value under BW12. Premium increases are triggered when the renovation investments meet 30% of the home's value.
I know a lot of people think, I don't have flood insurance because I'm not directly on the water. But theoretically speaking, it's not how it works. I mean, in this day and age, to even determine what your flood insurance premium is going to be, because that's what I've seen. Have you seen that as well? They won't even give you a flood quote until you've had the survey and the elevation certificate.
That's the key.
And then, so that's going to determine how high or low you are above or below the base flood elevation. And then from there, they're going to write your premium. And if you try to get a quote without it, they're going to quote you the highest possible premium at the worst possible scenario.
Yep.
So it's definitely not something you should do. I sure hope this passes quickly because I know it's affecting a lot of people. Like you said, I'm sure you've talked to homeowners that have just pulled their house off the market because they don't want to compete with that.
Yep. Yeah, and the velocity zones are closer to the beaches and where it could push, the wind could push in. And then you've got other flood zone like A through E. So.
Right. So I'm going to tell you about a couple listings that we have. Thank goodness these four I'm going to mention are not in a flood zone. So feel free to give us a call. You can reach us at our off-air number at 813-936-2302. Again, this is Katrina Madewell with Tampa Home Talk, and you can reach myself and my team at our office number, which also rings to our cell phones at 813-936-2302. So we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in Tampa. It's 1,054 square feet, not too far from MacDill Air Force Base. So it's in that, south of Gandy area, 6320 South Church Avenue. That one's actually listed for $122,000. It's a pretty good deal in the area. It's right there in the Sunset Edition area of Tampa. Also, a brand new listing that we just took. Absolutely beautiful. If you haven't had a chance to log on to our website and look at the pictures for this one, go to tampahometalk.com and check out 15930 Eagle River Way. That one's priced at just $200,000 right there in the heart of Carrollwood, Steinbrenner School District. So it's very much a sought after high school district. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,703 square feet. Sure feels a lot bigger when you're in it. It's got a pool home just for $200,000 and this brand new fence. It's got the new HVAC, geothermal hot water heater. I mean, she has replaced everything on this house. It's amazing. Hardwood floors, brand new kitchen. It's never been used. So you'll be the first one to cook in the brand new kitchen in this house.
That one won't last.
No, it's a good deal. And we've already had a lot of activity on it. So hopefully by the time you call, we still have it available. We also have a amazing, huge 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom home, almost 4,000 square feet at 1805 Oak Pond Street. It's down in Ruskin, real close to where they're building that new Amazon facility, or the distribution center, rather, have you. And it's still Hillsborough County, but it's just north of Manatee County. So it's a pretty neat place, especially if you have maybe a couple, one's commuting to Manatee, one's commuting to somewhere in Tampa or north. In the Hillsborough County area, it's a great place. Big house, again, 6-bedroom, 3-bath, formal living room, dining room, plus a den and a bonus room. Just absolutely amazing property. They're building the community pool there soon in Hawks Point, and that's 1805 Oak Pond Street, and that one's listed for just $250,000. And it was, by the way, it's only a little over a year old. It was built in 2012, but that was at the end. Wow. We also have another one in Land O'Lakes, 9212 Lost Mill Drive. That one's getting ready to get a paint job because we had a tenant move out of that one. Only been occupied by one person, and that one's just at $200,000. 5-bedroom, 4 full baths on a conservation pond lot. Absolutely beautiful. Newer home, built in 2006. It's a good deal. It's almost 3,500 square feet on that one. And that's it. Everything else we have is under contract. How about you, Brandon?
Awesome.
You got anything good?
I do. I've got one right around the corner from wherever we are in studio here at 805 Eldorado Avenue. This is a $917,000 beautiful property right across the street from the beach. Literally a 30-second walk, and you're in the back across the street, and you're on the beach there at 805 Eldorado Avenue in Clearwater. 4 bedrooms, 3 and 1/2 bath, over 3,000 square feet, and just a beautiful opportunity to own, and it is in a flood zone. So.
And we'll put those pictures up at tampahometalk.com so that you can have a look at that property Brandon's mentioning. But hopefully those flood kinks will be worked out real soon, and we'll be able to get you a buyer for that property.
That'd be great. Absolutely.
You have any other ones you want to talk about?
I've got a piece of property, a piece of land over here in Reddington Shores. That's a gorgeous opportunity. It's $750,000, and some people might say that's a lot of money for dirt. But when you look at this view over Boca Ciega Bay, what an amazing property! It's 17748 Long Point Drive, Reddington Shores, and just a great opportunity to build a property, build a home. And there's only one neighbor. So it's not one of these that you have neighbors both sides. You literally have one neighbor.
You'll have to post the pictures and the videos at tampahometalk.com. We'll have to try to get you a nice buyer there for that.
That'd be awesome.
So what other key points do you have for today? Because I know you had some good stuff you wanted to share.
Yeah, key takeaways. One thing I do want to mention, we're going to be at the home show next weekend, really big home show over at the Florida Fairgrounds, Friday the 14th, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., and it runs all the way through Sunday. And we're going to have our real estate booth set up there, and a lot of our pro partners are going to be there as well, and just kind of hanging out, having fun. It's a good opportunity. And yeah, just what I would say is if you're a buyer out there, man, what a great time to get in the market. We're looking at historically low rates. Affordability is still there.
The rates are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I always tell people to try to gauge, the market we're at now and your payments, because the rates are going to go up. It's just a matter of time. Inflation's going to kick in. The rates are going to go up, right, Mark?
Certainly.
You can vouch for us on this one. And essentially ask your parents what their mortgage rate was on their first house. You'll be surprised to hear what their numbers are.
Yeah, buy Florida real estate. You can't go wrong. And there's a study just came out. Tampa is third in the nation in terms of jobs, the best place to look for jobs.
Well, Amazon's building a brand new distribution center here, so it must be a good place to live and work and have that type of stuff. Plus the snow. I mean, the snow that the people have had up north is crazy. So after winters like that, we usually see an influx of buyers that come. They've been here on vacation, and they think, wow, this is probably a great time to take another vacation, Because we never have to shovel snow. We never even see it. I mean, my kids have never seen snow until I take them to go see it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. I'm going to give you our off-air number again, just in case you have questions or want to connect with me or my team. This is Katrina Madewell, and the number is 813-936-2302. Again, this is Katrina Madewell, Tampa Home Talk. Charles Rettenberg Realty, 813-936-2302. We will be back in just a minute. Good afternoon and welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. Thanks so much for sticking around with us this Saturday afternoon. In studio, we have Brandon Rhymes with the Real Estate Quarterback Show. You can catch him on HNZ at 2 o'clock usually, although he's being bumped for the Gator game.
Yeah, those pesky Gators.
And we also have Mark Sherwin, founder of Sage Capital Advisors. Going to give you some tips on wealth and just things to help protect some of your assets and go into a bunch of real good stuff. So what do you got for us today, Mark? You want to share on something good?
Yeah, sure. Basically what we do is we help to protect business owners and key persons from the major forms of attack on their dollars, on their assets. And those attacks are market volatility, frivolous litigation, and taxation. And so one of the best ways to help keep more of the money that you earn in your pocket is to utilize strategies to defer tax or get tax deductions. And
so for what type of avenues do you use for that? Do you have like an example?
Yeah. Well, the common ones out there are the 401ks and the IRAs and 529s and things like that that are utilized for retirement. But there are a lot more strategies that are available that are very, very beneficial for business owners and key persons, and most people aren't aware of them.
So I have a curious question for you. Let's say someone's listening to Tampa Home Talk right now. Maybe they're a small business owner. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of people out there that really, again, this is the mission of our show, right? To help people keep and maintain good credit, live within their means, and build wealth.
Right.
So if you have someone maybe that hasn't even started an IRA or a 401k, and maybe they don't even know where to begin, mm-hmm. where's a good place for them to start?
Well, what we would do is we would go over the various types of vehicles that would be available, and they would be the IRAs and the 401ks, and we would decide, okay, is it better to pay the tax up front, okay, and the analogy is it better to pay tax on the seed or on the harvest?
Right.
Okay, so a lot of people have heard that, but it's true.
This is based on their profits, right? If they're going to get taxed on at the end of the year or put it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then we would decide, okay, should we be utilizing a Roth or take care of the tax right now? Because do we think the tax rates are going to be higher in the future or their tax rate? And so we'll go ahead and help them decide for whatever option. And we'll also go over, it's nothing's perfect because the dollars that they put into an IRA or 401k they can't access until they're 59 and a half. So if something happens, if they want to purchase a home or something, they can't access those monies. However, there are strategies out there where you can get the deduction up front, you can get the tax-deferred growth, but you can also have tax-free access, okay? And that's at any age, at any time, for any reason.
Now, what are you referring to? What type of vehicles are those?
There are. That's actually surprisingly this horrible word called life insurance.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what a lot of people do.
Is that the ones that build cash value?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So the really neat thing out there is that you can pick strategies in there for your policy to get credited that actually over almost every 10 to 20 year period of time have outperformed the S&P 500. Excluding the 1990s, of course. And I'm a guy. I grew up in the equity world. Okay, more of stocks, bonds, mutual funds. But I also am an expert on these other tools that are available, and we can take it a step beyond the IRAs and the 401ks, so that we can have this thing called luck. Okay, liquidity, use, and control of our money. Wow, that's a novel idea.
It sounds like a lot better of a plan than letting the government plan it all for you and tell you what you're going to pay.
That's right. And actually, I don't want to be, harping too much against 401ks, but when you're getting a tax deferral up front, okay, you're going to owe tax when you begin to withdraw the money. And the government's going to decide what that tax rate is going to be when you withdraw the money.
Yeah, that's scary. And then I hear the horror stories, too, about people that had X amount in those 401ks and now they don't. And, the older they get, the scarier that can be.
Well, you want to try to get your tax deductions and get tax-deferred growth, but you also, you don't want that money cut in half on the next bear market, because it got cut in half in 01, 02, 03, and it got cut in half in 09. And that's where human emotions come in, greed and fear, and people are going to be the most scared, and so that they can sleep and Now, is it kind of like equity position in your home? Because, this is my expertise, this is Brandon's expertise, but like in your world, is it kind of like equity where eventually it'll come back, or do those funds have to be like allocated to a different stock or whatever? Well, you can go ahead and move things around and try and get the tax, the loss, and take the loss against any gains you have. But that's the one thing. The majority of the investment strategies that are out there that the broker-dealers and the banks talk about utilize something called modern portfolio theory. And that essentially is a long-only investment strategy, meaning that they are investing in mutual funds that have a mandate to own a certain type of stock. Like if it's a large cap fund, they have to own basically S&P 500 stocks. So the manager of that fund, even in 07 or 08, if that manager knew, that there was going to be a horrible crash, he's obligated to own S&P 500 stocks. So he can't sell those individual stocks. So there's, in reality, zero. Okay, maybe there's 1% of risk mitigation. Okay, I can't probably say zero. Okay. However, that's why everyone's 401ks and investments go up and down with the stock market. Okay. Which is kind of scary. Like, there's a lot of talk about you could get into this conversation, I'm sure, probably very deep with regards to the U.S. being the world currency and just a number of things like that, which is scary because if you saved your whole life and then you have this 401k that may be worth half, may be worth less. Yeah, especially if that happens right when you first retire and you're not bringing in the income. So what we do is we utilize strategies where we will have a manager that has the ability to go to cash when he perceives that there's a time of danger coming up. Okay, or in some of these strategies, we can even make money when the market's going down. And so the top strategies of these that we utilize, actually by any risk measurement, are more conservative and safer than the S&P 500 in common benchmarks because they're not riding that roller coaster. We're getting off that roller coaster. Okay, and there's absolutely no guarantees, obviously, but we want to cut our losses. It's much more important to cut losses quickly than having gains.
I think that's where a lot of people kind of felt the same way in the short sale world when they saw their property values tank in half. I think some people said, this is a business decision for me. At some point, I can buy another house later. It's, there's a fine line in what you believe as far as what's ethically, what's not, what is a good business decision and what isn't. Anyway, when we come back, you're listening to Mark Sherwin. He's the founder for Sage Capital Advisor. He's going to give you some more information and talk about some of their strategies as a different avenue with regards to life insurance. We also have in studio here Brandon Rhymes with the Real Estate Quarterback Show. And you're listening to Katrina Madewell, your host of Tampa Home Talk. And we'll be back in just a minute to wrap up our show with some really good stuff. So stick around. We'll be back in just a minute. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. Thanks for sticking around with us this afternoon. You can find us here on 1340, 1350, and 1400 every Thursday at 5 p.m. and also Saturday at 5 p.m. We're happy to bring you great information around keeping and maintaining good credit, living within your means, and building wealth. And one of our guests today in studio was Sage Capital Advisors, Mark Sherwin. He's given us some great tips and tricks and information on helping you hang on to some of that wealth.
That's right.
Thanks for being our guest again today.
Thank you.
So I know before the break you were talking a little bit about life insurance being one of those avenues to protect some of your assets, your hard-earned assets that you've saved and put aside. Talk more about that, because I have a couple of life insurance policies myself. Mm-hmm. One of them is a cash policy, one that builds a cash value, and the other one is actually a term policy. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because when the real estate market, there was a period when we had really, really tough times after we peaked out in 2006, so probably 2007 for several years. There was a lot of people that were busy like me, like you, and you could work your tail off and have a lot of stuff going and not get paid for a couple months. It was just the norm, right, Absolutely. Of that market. So the benefit and the beauty of having that policy, I will tell you from personal experience, is that one that builds a cash policy, or cash value rather, it actually paid for itself to renew.
Yeah.
So I thought that was super interesting. And it was nifty to see some of the stocks and the things that they put that in. It's certainly not my area of expertise, but I just thought it was interesting to see that they picked such good stocks that I had enough cash to pay that policy for several years.
Oh, so it was more of a variable policy.
I suppose, because it had a lot of different, it's foreign to me. It's like speaking another language. So kind of like a lot of the flood and real estate stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, those are good when the market's going up. There's a warning, though, when the market goes down. And so there are some interesting things out there called indexing, where you can go up tied to a benchmark like the S&P with a cap, but then also have a floor of 0. So if the market is going up, you're getting credited. If it goes up 10%, you're going to get credited 10%. If it falls off 30%, you're going to stay flat that year. So that's really neat, and that's what I was referring to that beats the S&P on almost every 10 and 20 year.
And that's called indexing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that we use, and we're still investing in equity strategies, like I had said, that where we're mitigating, the three forms of risk. There's individual company risk, there's sector risk, and there's systemic risk. Okay, so we're eliminating individual company risk because we don't recommend to buy individual companies. We're mitigating sector risk because we have the ability to roll to other areas. And we're mitigating systemic risk, which is market risk, because we have the ability to go to cash.
Now, can you break each one of those down a little bit and just explain them in lay terms?
Am I speaking jargon here?
Well, then I'd like to break it down in the most simplistic form, because sometimes people can follow, but other times, there might be somebody listening right now that says, well, I think I know what he's talking about, but I'm not really sure.
What we do...
So just break it down simple.
This account would be, you set up an account that would be held at a custodian, very much like at a brokerage house or something like that. And we will hire top investment managers that will trade your account for you according to the strategy that you have chosen.
And that's depending on how aggressive you want to be or how non-aggressive you want to be, I presume?
Yeah. And we'd probably use a combination of strategies. And so what they will do is they will buy typically an index mutual fund, a no-load, no transaction fee mutual fund, like an S&P 500 fund. But unlike the long-only mutual funds that you hear advertised all the time, these are built so that you can sell them. Okay, so what they use it's called quantitative analysis. So they'll use all these indicators and oscillators that they use in combination to give a higher probability of success in either buying or selling that index mutual fund. And so, like I said, these mutual funds also are built so that you could trade them every other day if you wanted. So when they think there's a time of danger, they're going to move to cash. Okay, so they're going to sell that no-load index mutual fund.
And they can actually take that cash and like put it in a holding account or whatever?
Yeah, they just move it to a money market. It's still in that same brokerage account, and then when they think that things are going to be positive again, then they'll just go ahead and buy it back. And so that's, the managers that do this are top guys.
So I know we talked about like if you were someone that owned a business and you were just, you didn't have any place and you wanted to start from here. What about the person that, I don't know, maybe they're in their 50s and they have lost everything or half of their 401k or one of those scenarios? I'm sure you see them every day. What kind of suggestions and general advice would you give for that person?
Well, they've learned that you don't want to take losses. Okay, but I'm not saying you don't sell when it's time to sell. But losses
they're scared.
are the most
They've lost a lot of their time.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there are strategies out there where there are guarantee floors of zero, so that might be something to look at. But one thing that we haven't really touched on as much is is tax savings and other tax savings vehicles. So aside from the IRAs and the 401ks, especially for business owners or key persons in businesses.
Now, would this apply for corporations, LLCs, any of those across the board?
Yeah, and people that are buying and selling real estate for a living.
Okay, so investors.
Okay, because they have their own S Corp or whatever it is. So there are vehicles out there where they can put away, because a 401k has a max to put in of $17,500. If you're over 50, another $5,000 or so on top of that. But there are other vehicles out there that can be utilized that have extremely high contribution limits of 50, 100, couple $100,000. There's even a strategy out there that has a cap of $1.2 million. So you can get up to a $1.2 million deduction. Another one.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, so that's great information.
Into a vehicle that they own and control. Okay, income tax free. It's interesting. There's a lot of things like that people aren't aware of, and I actually have designed numerous courses on these advanced tax planning strategies. And
now, are those courses that people come and attend? Are they webinars? What type of courses are those?
I haven't done the webinars yet, but that's coming soon.
Okay.
But I do them in front of people, whether it's at clubs or restaurants or at my office, but also in front of CPAs and attorneys. I actually submitted these courses to the Florida Bar and the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation, which is the office for CPAs here in Florida.
Now, what's the purpose of submitting them to those regulatory entities?
Because I now offer continuing education to attorneys, actually for years, to attorneys and CPAs on these. These are special niche tax strategies that surprisingly many of them are not aware of. And
I bet they love that because CLE is super expensive for attorneys.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Obviously a CPA, because that's his profession, is an expert in tax. But I can bring these niche ideas to them. You're
listening to Tampa Home Talk. This is Mark Sherwin here speaking as my guest with Sage Capital Advisors. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. We also have in studio Brandon Rhymes. So thank you again for sharing. There's a lot of really, really good little tidbits and information. So do you have any courses coming up or any classes?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I should talk to some colleges and start to offer these, but we do them on a regular basis.
So you kind of plan them and set them either in a restaurant or, in advance.
Yeah,
and then
you
book them from there.
Yeah, or like I said, in CPA's offices or
and how long are those
offices.
Courses usually?
They're all 1 hour because they CLE and CPE, which are the attorney and CPA designations for continuing education, are all by the hour. But you can put 2 and 3 hour courses together, but I put them all together in an hour. And so people can actually give me a call, and I'd be happy to get with them and
meet with them one-to-one in a consultation.
Yeah, we can do that, or in groups, or however we decide.
We're going to post Mark Sherwin's information on our website at tampahometalk.com so that you can connect with him and give him a call if you have any questions. You can also call us, and we'll be happy to directly connect you with him. And our office number is 813-936-2302. Again, you're listening to Katrina Madewell, Tampa Home Talk. If you're driving, don't take the number down now, but you can pull over or hand it to the passenger. And that number is 813-936-2302. Or just go to tampahometalk.com when you get home, and we'll put it on there for you.
Sounds great.
So any more information or little tidbits, or are they a bunch of different courses? You said you have a lot of different ones, right, that you put on?
Yeah, on advanced business and estate planning, on specialty niche.
Specialty niche, like
niche
investors?
Strategies.
Okay.
Such as cash balance plans, Section 79, 831B. I know I'm speaking
Yeah, those are Greek.
Greek here, but also on investing and tactical investment management. That's what it's called when you're able to actually buy and sell instead of just being long. Long meaning that you're at the mercy of the stock market.
So what are some of the things that someone, maybe they haven't invested anything yet and they're getting ready to, what are some of the things they should look out for?
They should not buy a mutual fund that is long only. Okay, especially...
That is long only?
That means that it's like an S&P fund. Okay, even though the no load, no transaction fee ones we purchase, but the manager can sell them. That's what they're designed for. But I do not agree with the buy and hold strategy, and it doesn't work because of human emotion. Because we are breaking new highs in the stock market. Okay, well, historically the stock market has a bear market every 3 to 5 years of an average of 30%, and once every decade 50%. Okay, and we've already had 2 last decade. And I'm not.
So it's
I'm not,
like what, usually every 10 years, 10 to 20 years was a pretty major market crash or significant drops?
No, every 3 to 5 years is about a 30% drop historically, 30 to 50 actually, and then once every decade 50%. But there can be more. And we're in a secular bear market. We've been in a bear market since 2000, and the average bear market lasts 18 years. We're in the 14th year, and so the only time that we're going to know that we're in a bull market, the definition of a bear market is until you surpass previous highs and don't come back to go below those highs. Well, we just broke through the highs, but we won't technically know for another couple years whether we're in a new bull market. However, I am of the opinion that we're going to be going back down, especially with if we ever begin to taper on the quantitative easing, because all that money is going into the stock market, and when that stops, watch out.
And you've been doing this for how long?
This is my 20th year.
So are there some little indicators or signs or like little things that you see? Like, is it tied to job numbers, I guess, a little bit, and they start dropping?
I don't really follow all that. That's I would term all that stuff noise. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the majority of the strategies that we utilize actually use price and price movement and volume to and things like, so that generates what are like oscillators and indicators like relative strength, things like that, and that's where these guys that are our investment managers that we hire will use these indicators and oscillators in that it's actually algorithmically based, where all of a sudden it'll flash buy or it'll flash sell. It's all computer driven. Right. And sometimes they have other overlays on that, but a lot of it is it's called tactical asset management.
Gotcha.
And so it takes human emotion out.
You're listening to my guest, Mark Sherwin with Sage Capital Advisors, also in studio, Brandon Rhymes, Real Estate Quarterback Show, and your host, Katrina Madewell of Tampa Home Talk. Thanks so much for joining us. You can catch us here every Thursday and every Saturday at 5 p.m., 1340, 1350, and 1400. Unfortunately, we are out of time today, but I thank very much both of you for coming in, and we'll be back Catch us again next Thursday at 5. But for now, we are out.